Okay, I think we can get started. Melissa will be joining in a bit, and once she joins, she can just hop on to the call. Um, until then, we can get started. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us in the Women in the Workplace panel. We have 6 speakers who are going to tell us a lot about how they got into this field and some of their journeys. So let's start off with introductions. We have the order. So, okay, let's go in the order of the presentation. Miss Rachel, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. And I was hoping I wouldn't be first. So everybody else said before I figured out what I was going to say, but thank you for putting me first. um, my name is Rachel Fox. I am a wife, mom, entrepreneur, nonprofit founder of You Go Girl. We're based in Omaha, Nebraska, and our whole mission is to encourage, empower, and inspire all girls and all women everywhere. And we do that by creating unique experience for them. One of the things that I think is that brings us together is our love for technology. We have been hosting since last year a coding club that gets girls and women involved in technology. We don't believe there's many of us there, but we want there to be more girls and more women represented in the tech space. I've been in the tech space for over a decade. Gosh, I hate saying that because it makes me feel old. But I am self-taught. I love technology. I'm always learning. The great thing about this space is you're never too old to enter and you never ever stop learning. So I'm really glad to be here and I can't wait to hear from all of the other excellent panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. That was a lovely introduction. Okay, Brandy, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, good morning. I'm Brandy Bothy. Rachel kind of gave you an overview of You Go Girl. I am the director of marketing there, as well as I sit on the board. I love the work we do through You Go Girl. Not only are we in the tech space, but we also give back to our community in huge ways. So it's amazing to be a part of that. I'm also a graphic designer at Buildertrend, one construction project management software in the world, owning 3% of the global market. So working in that tech space has also been an incredible journey. Yeah, just really excited to be here and thanks.
Awesome. Yes, we're so excited you're here. Okay, Miss Rekha, the floor is yours.
Thank you, guys. It's wonderful to be here. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm Rekha. I'm currently based out of California, so quite early for me, but super excited to be joining you guys. I currently work for Walmart in the tech. I love building products. It's my passion and something that I do day in, day out for our customers. And I've been with Walmart for some time. Before that, have been in tech for, I would say, 16 plus years now. Have worked for Oracle, Infosys. Back in India, I started as an engineer, so a lot of love for tech, I would say. Computer engineer during my undergrad, like any Indian parents would too, like doctor or engineer. So I ended up being an engineer. And then obviously I did my MBA after I moved to United States 13 years ago. Mom of 7-year-old boy and also a 9-year-old puppy, I would say, because he's my first son. So yeah, that's kind of my family. Looking forward to the next 1 hour with this exciting panel. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Rekha. Miss Melissa, please introduce yourself. Okay, so I think Melissa, is Melissa here? Geetika or Pallavi, you can introduce Melissa. Let's see. Okay, Geetika, are you on the call? Or
she's not here yet, but she will be just in a few minutes. So you can just, skip and come back to her. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, we can come back to her. All right, Wendy, please go ahead.
Hello, I'm Wendy Hawley. I'm a developer at Underbridge Software, which is a small consulting company here in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm one of the founders and the current president of Mystery Code Society, which is a nonprofit to champion gender equity in tech through coding education for people of marginalized genders. And we offer both coding classes as well as community for people in all stages of their coding career. And I also was one of the organizers for GetConf, which is a conference by women for everyone to amplify and celebrate voices of non-men in tech. That was in 2019. And Stephanie is also part of both of those nonprofit efforts.
Awesome. Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Rachna. I'll just give a quick introduction about myself. I'm studying computer science at the University of Texas at Dallas, and it's my sophomore year. So it's just been an amazing learning process. And again, I just want to say it's a privilege to share the stage with you guys. You are all amazing, and I just want to learn more about you. So let's jump into the panel questions. I'd just like to start with asking, how did you all get your start into tech? How did you gain technical experience? So I'll start with the order of people that I see on my screen. So I see Reka, then Stephanie, Rachel, Brandy, and then Wendy. So we'll go in that order. Reka, you can go ahead.
Sure. No, great question. I think takes me back to my undergrad day. I think for me personally, I was a software, kind of the specialization that I did in my undergrad was computer science. So as I said, like, I wanted to not be a doctor, not an engineer, and wanted to be something else. But my dad was like the force because he was a civil engineer. So he always thought that his girls, like I have a sister too, so his girls should be like engineer. So both me and my sister ended up studying computer science. So to me, I don't know, it was like a coincidence, like my dad just said that, okay, go do it. And I picked it up and did my undergrad in India. And obviously I did get placed through like the campus interviews. And that's how my first tech job happened back in India, I would say 16 years ago. And I know that time we used to have all the C, Java, all the old technologies that you call like legacy now. Those were the days, and kind of ended up being like, going through the training process. Obviously had to do a lot of side work as well, because in typically back in India, I'm sure some of you girls can correlate. Like back in India, when you do your like undergrad, you say you are studying computer science, but technically you don't really code or you don't do things that really teach you computer science. It's more theoretical versus practical. So how to really apply what you learn was always a challenge, at least for me, where I graduated from. So for got a job, I went into the, obviously I had to spend some extra efforts doing those trainings behind the scenes, putting some extra efforts, learning what it means, why I'm building something, why is someone using what I'm building, right? Because it's not just about you going and coding and building a product, but it's also about why you are building, right? There is some reason why you're doing it. You're solving a problem, right? So I think there was a lot of that mind shift that has to be kind of cultivated, practiced, a lot of training that I had to, as an individual, do to kind of improve my skills being when I landed a job of software engineer. So I think that's how my kind of breakthrough into tech happened.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Stephanie, can you take the stage?
Sure. So also, I didn't get a chance to introduce myself. So my name is Stephanie Monge, and as Wendy mentioned, I'm a board member and vice president of Mystery Code Society, and a co-founder of Gender Equity in Tech, also a consultant working with startups on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And then during the day, I'm a digital marketer for an international nonprofit. So for me, my journey actually started as a newspaper reporter 14-ish years ago. But like at the moment when it was clear that newspapers were a dying industry and that things were going to change. Really in that same kind of slice of time, social media literally was invented because it didn't exist. I mean, even really when I was in college. And so for me, it was all about understanding the opportunities to like evolve and innovate in these traditional spaces, using tech and figuring out like what that would look like. So for me, I really was self-taught, and it was all very much kind of like seeing this future vision where we could use these new technical tools to solve existing problems in ways that are just more innovative and sort of relevant. So that's the thing that kind of segued my career into tech, and I went to work for just a series of startups based mostly in California, and some with a presence here in Nebraska. But just like thinking about like community management and like how we can connect people with those technical tools, but really retain that humanness and that human connection. So like I'm always trying to find that balance of like, how do we use the tools to add value, but how do we retain that human connection and that empathy that can really kind of go away sometimes when we're so focused on tech.
That's amazing. I'm so sorry I didn't notice that we missed your introduction. Sorry about that. Okay, Rachel, how did you get into tech and how did you gain technical experience?
Well, my entry into tech is similar to Stephanie's. I was an insurance sales agent at the age of 18, and I've always worked in spaces where we have some type of product or technical solution, but I was not on the quote unquote back end of it. I was on the front end servicing the customers. And I remember when I transitioned from sales to kind of customer or technical support, and I would submit tickets to IT, and I would wait for a long time for an answer, and I just started to get irritated. I was like, I want to know what's going on with the system. I want to be able to tell my clients something that I'm more knowledgeable about. And so I started asking the questions and talking to the developer, pulled back the curtain, because you all know that dev teams, they kind of huddle together, and it's the boys club. And back in the day, there weren't very many women, and in my space, there weren't any. And I just ripped back the curtain. I said, tell me how to do this stuff. What's actually going on? You mean to tell me that it's a tilde mark that's making all this stink? Come on. And I started to get more intrigued and wanting to know what's going on with all the technology. And so it's that curiosity that I had at a young age that never really stopped. And so that progressed my career into the tech space, and I've been there ever since, teaching myself, teaching others, and kind of breaking stereotypes and molds, because there are not very many that look like me in the tech space, and I want to change that. So here I am.
That's amazing. Okay, Brandy, how did you get your technical experience and how did you get into tech?
Yeah, I would say very similar to Stephanie and Rachel, like very much self-taught. So I started in the industry. I graduated college as a graphic designer and quickly got into a company and realized, wow, I really need a whole lot more to do the job that I'm doing. And part of that was realizing, oh, they need a new website. They probably need a mobile app. Like, how can we make this happen? I really learned just diving in head first into WordPress and really went from there. And technology has given my career such an amazing edge. Not only are my solutions more creative because I have the knowledge of technology to dream up into those solutions, but it's also just so much informed, better decision making, better solutions all around.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's inspiring to hear how you are combining both creativity and tech together. Also, hi, Melissa. Can you hear us and see us? Just want to check if we can hear you. Um, okay, so Melissa, we see your messages in the chat. That's awesome. Is your audio working? Oh, I think we lost connection with her. That's okay. We'll try and come back to her. Okay. Wendy, we'd love to hear from you. How did you gain your technical experience and get started in this field?
Yes, I also have a non-traditional path. I was actually that girl who attended a computer science class and loved it in college, but looked around and decided I didn't like the gender ratio and decided I was going to major in chemistry because chemistry had at least 40% women. And I got my master's degree in other things, and then the recession forced me to get an office job, and all of the tech, the little bit of tech that I knew, helped me with that office job because I did not like office work and I found it tedious and boring, but I did find that I could code my way through solutions. So like, oh, you want me to rename 10,000 files? I am pretty sure I can do that with a program instead of doing that by hand, which was the way me to do it. From there, I built like applications, reports, automated things that would run. But since I was self-taught, I knew that it wasn't quite right. So in 2015, I went to a boot camp to learn more modern tools and, you know, actually how to do what I was doing. And I had a little bit of a different experience there too, in that because of my previous experience, I left as a mid-level dev instead of a junior dev. But I went to that boot camp in 2015 and I transferred into the IT department at my company, and I've switched jobs since then, but that's my career path.
Thank you for sharing that. All right. Melissa, I do see that you are on the screen. Are you able to hear us? Yes. Okay. I think your audio might not be working. That's all right. So I can read the chat. So if you could share your journey and introduction in the chat, then we would love to see that. And so the question was, how did you gain your technical experience and how did you get your start in this field? So while she is answering this, we can go to the next question. So I'd like to know from you all, especially being a woman, did you face any challenges in the workplace and how did you deal with these challenges? So this time let's go in the opposite direction. Let's start with Wendy and work our way backwards.
Yes, I have faced some challenges being a woman in the workplace, but I'm very lucky. They have mostly been things that I've been able to work with, mostly microaggressions around code review, microaggressions or lack of opportunity to get projects or get your ideas supported. Before I was in tech in that office job, I was actually in another male-dominated field. I did have a man tell me that he couldn't work with smart women. He hung up on me and he called one of my coworkers. Which is like an insult to everyone. That coworker was also a woman. So the implication being, I guess, that she wasn't smart. I don't know. She was very smart. So I've had things like that happen. I have been paid far less than my male colleagues while working harder. I have watched as white men in my cohort of classmates from the tech boot camp have been promoted again and again up to senior dev, while watching the women in those cohorts not get promoted as quickly or as easily. And I have had people tell me, especially more senior women who worked in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, tell me about sexual harassment and sometimes sexual assault that they experienced in the workplace as a woman working in tech. But those things didn't happen to me. I will say, to me, the thing that you do, or at least that I did, was that you find allies. Like, this is a problem where we can't solve it by ourselves or tell individual people that they can solve a systemic thing. So you need to find allies in your workplace, you need to find allies in your community, center the most vulnerable, because I'm not the most vulnerable. I'm a white woman working in many of these spaces and I have all of that white privilege that goes there. I'm also incredibly educated. And I am middle class, so all of these things help me as I'm working in these spaces and dealing with these things. So you have to center the people who are more vulnerable than you, and commit to learning. And then when you bring others with you, you can actually change places. I've been able to change places that I've worked in. I've been able to find better places to work in. And part of the reason I started the nonprofits, I'm sure we're going to hear from other people their reasons, but was to create more communities where this was something that you could actually do to change problems that we're experiencing.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely important to create that kinship between women and just any supporters, as you can find who's, there for the cause, and make sure that when something like this happens, we have supporters who can back us up. Okay, Miss Brandy, I'd love to hear your
Can we share
answer on
Melissa's
this question.
answer? Can we share Melissa's answer to the previous question? Because I see it's in the chat now. Would that be okay?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes. Okay, so Melissa shared that most of my experience is OJT, on the job training. I have worked in so many different roles and products throughout my career and have touched everything from proposals to design to manufacturing to test to integration to program engineering, management to consulting to tutoring and teaching in K-12 classrooms. Each assignment was a request to fill a void, get something back on track, or pursue an interest. That is amazing. The fact that you have worked in so many different types of areas, that is amazing. Thank you for sharing your introduction. And yeah, please share your answers in the chat. I'll be happy to read them out and share it with the audience. So the next question is, have you faced any challenges in the workplace, and how did you overcome them? So we'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well. Okay, Miss Brandy, back to you.
Yeah, I think we missed just a little bit of Melissa's answer too. And I love the part where she said, my dad suggested engineering. I thought that was just such a cool part of her story. You know, she said, I loved math and science in high school and wanted to pursue something related to those subjects in college. Her dad suggested engineering and she didn't know what that would find out later. So how cool. What a cool story, Melissa. Thank you so much. I repeat the question. Challenges we faced in the field, correct? I would echo Wendy in saying, you know, a lot of that stuff is what I would say probably universal across a lot of our experiences. But a unique facet that I've experienced and I still face every day is ageism. You know, not the way of against olders, but younger. I look young and I've always fought that. I've fought getting called kiddo at every job I've ever worked in. So I would say that that's a unique thing. And just like Wendy said, you know, I think finding allies is so important. And I think, you know, as you experience these challenges, whether it be sexism or ageism throughout your career, I think you become better at identifying that. And so when you're looking at other places to go, you become better at spotting those microaggressions inside of job descriptions and inside of company cultures. So I would even just say, like, continue honing that and don't ever let anyone convince you that that is not real or that that does not matter, because it absolutely does. And hold on to those nuggets and take that with you wherever you go so that you know what you're not looking for.
I agree, yeah. I feel like we have that sixth sense when we know that there's something that's, you know, making us uncomfortable, or if there's something not right. And yeah, it just gets better over time, and we have to learn on how to actually, you know, address that and make them know that, you know, we're not feeling good about what they've said or something like that. Thank you for sharing that. Miss Rachel, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Thank you. I really am impressed by all of the answers everybody has given. Melissa, I'd love to connect with you after and just see how we can collaborate together. But my experience in the corporate space and challenges that I face, gosh, they're no different from Wendy or Brandy. The added difference is that I'm a Black woman. I am self-taught. I've been in situations where I've been paid $30,000 to $40,000 less than even somebody that's on the same level as me that I've had to train. I've watched people get promoted over me. I've watched other individuals get more opportunities than I have. And when I asked why that was, the reason would have been because I didn't have a college degree. Even though I had proven to know just as much or more than my white or male colleagues, and sometimes white female colleagues. And it was very hard. It was very challenging. I'd always have to come into work to prove myself, to prove that I was worthy, rather than the opposite of just being worthy and being accepted. So the way that I got around that was to know my own voice, to be able to advocate for myself, and to know when it's time to go. Sometimes there are organizations that just do not want to embrace change. And when you know your worth and value, you can be able to walk away. And I've done that several times. And now I'm in a position where I have my own consulting company. I advocate for brown and Black folks in the workspace. I utilize my voice. I utilize my nonprofit organization to continue to open up this discussion about diversity and inclusion. I think that there is something to be said still to this day about women and equal pay. It just shouldn't be the case. It's something that keeps me up at night, and it's something that I will continue to advocate for. So what I would say is, although there are many struggles with women in technology, they present the challenge to us all to continue to provide those solutions that matter and will matter for the generations that are coming behind us.
Hi. So Melissa's on the phone. We can give her answers through the speaker. So we have her. Rachna, you can also include her. Yay. Yeah.
Thank you, Geetika, for that. But yeah, Ms. Rachel, thank you for sharing that. And it's inspiring to learn that you created your own organization where you can advocate your own values, the values that are right, and inspire more girls and more young women like you. Okay, Ms. Stephanie, I'd love to hear your journey and the challenges you overcame.
Yeah, so kind of to other folks' points, that a lot of these experiences have been universal, but I will say, as a Black woman, there are additional kind of layers of complexity that have been factors throughout my career. So thinking about how I have overcome them, much like Rachel, I started a bunch of my own businesses because the reality is, you know, at different points when there weren't opportunities available that matched what I was bringing to the table, I was in a position to say, okay, cool, then like I'll do it myself and I will be able to like say what my value is. But it's important to like acknowledge that's a privilege. Like that is not an opportunity that is available to everyone. And especially if we think about like underrepresented groups and like people who have been historically marginalized, that might not be an option. So I think that like as we think about ways to like evaluate workplace culture, one of the things that I've learned is super important to pay attention to. It isn't like what are the policies and procedures that are in place. It is who are the exceptions, who are like exceptions made to these like policies and procedures, and like who gets a pass, but like who has to, you know, prove 3 times over that they're like following the rules or the process or whatever. So like those are actually, I think, very helpful indicators that you can pay attention to. And then thinking too, beyond like allies, it's important for you to like document your experiences, not even necessarily to give to your employer, but because gaslighting is such a real thing that people will tell you that you're wrong, that it's your fault, that this isn't happening. And the reality is to be able to document that for yourself, to even come back and ground and like, okay, this is my experience, this is my truth. And just to like remember that is sometimes really grounding. And the last thing I will say related to gaslighting is like thinking about those situations where you know that something is wrong, you're speaking out that it's wrong, but folks can be defensive as they're coming back to you. So there's an acronym that I recently learned that has changed my life. DARVO, DARVO. So DARVO is a response to gaslighting. So it is deny, attack, reverse the victim and offender. And it's like, when I thought about that framework, I was like, oh my goodness, wait a second. I know that recipe because it's one that like I have faced many times. So it's like even being able to name that, like, I see what you're doing. Okay, like, but I can still stand firm in my truth. But also realizing, like, again, we have different levels of privilege and we may or may not be able to walk away from a job. So thinking in that moment too, like, what are you willing to lose, or what is your goal here? And like, maybe your goal for your livelihood is keep your job because you need the paycheck for right now. So it's like, what can you do then, knowing that that's your end goal? And just remembering that, like, based on what your need is right now, you know, you might have to do a little bit of maneuvering to try to figure out like how to make that work. But yeah, so that was a lot of information, but mostly I feel like I want you to like think about gaslighting and really like think about that and just like resist the urge to kind of succumb to like, yeah, oh my gosh, you know what, you're right. And like let other people really just like kind of stamp out your experience and your truth.
Yes, thank you. This was really insightful, especially to people who are, you know, more vulnerable and don't have that position of privilege. These are some amazing tips on how to, you know, stand up and fight back. Ms. Rekha, please go ahead. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Rachna. I think for me, first of all, great kind here, and love it and resonates so well. I mean, as someone who has been in tech for 16 plus years, I could correlate very well. And being a woman, I think it works more easy, right? For me personally, I would say two things. So back like when I started my career, I think one of the biggest challenges back in India, so at least for me, I'm an immigrant, like I moved from India to here. I had my own challenges. I think my bigger first challenge was back in India when I got a job. And this was a thing, like everybody used to fly to United States or London, like you go on site, right? And it was like a dream because a lot of my colleagues, male colleagues, got an opportunity. And as someone as a female, I always got a pushback because they thought, oh, what if I have a baby and I leave my job, right? What if like, no, you're getting married, you leave a job. So I did get married when I was at work, but I never left my job. But I had to prove over and over that I am capable. I think that was my first struggle. Like, I think it was just 2 years into my job and I started facing all this. And if you see at that time, way back in 2004, the tech was like booming, as what Stephanie, Rachel, Gwendolyn, everybody was saying. I think tech was just starting. And the challenge was there were more male than female in tech, honestly. At least back in India, there is this culture that moment you get married, you leave your job, you take care of your family is your priority. Even now, I get that. Even after 16 years, I have people telling me like, no, you should leave your job and take care of your family, right? I think at workplace, the bigger challenge for me was like, no, telling that, no, I am capable, right? So I had to do that storytelling. It took me a while. It took me 3 years to break that stereotype that I can do it. And I had to face so many men and say that, look, I'm as capable as you are, right? So that was my first struggle when I started. Bigger dramatic change for me was when I moved to United States. because the way I speak, the way I carry myself, my cultural background, it was not easy for people to accept me at workplace. Like I work for a consultant. I did consulting for a couple of years before I got a full-time job, like in company in US. So I moved from a company from India. And it was hard for me. Like I still remember a day when someone threatened me saying that, hey, you will be sent back because you are on a visa. You will be sent back to your country if you don't listen what I'm telling you. And it was a male. So I had to really push back, right? So, and I think as a woman, we always hold ourselves back. One bigger lesson for me that I still carry and count for myself is ask. What will somebody tell you? No, that's perfectly fine, but don't hold it with you, right? I think each one of us are capable in some way or the other, and we need to tell the world our story. It's okay. I mean, we have our that we speak up. We need to speak up when we have to speak up. If we don't speak up, then you are the loser. I think we ourselves tend to hold us back. And I think as a woman, it's very important that we speak up when we really need to. We need to support other women, right? Even I do know, like, I do a lot for women, like outside of my work. Like I'm a chapter lead for women in product. I run mentor circles and stuff. It's interesting. I've heard like a lot of men saying that, oh, what's special about women? Aren't there men? So I've had people say that. So, which is pretty interesting. So I think the lesson I would say, the one of the tip that I would share with the girls is, ask, speak up, right? There is no harm in sharing your failure. I think you learn from your failure. Each one of us are capable, and that would be my tip, that if I were to come in with my background.
Thank you for sharing that. I agree. Yeah, especially as women, I feel that, if we have like maybe 50% of the skills that are required, we feel that, oh, maybe we're not qualified enough. Maybe there's someone better who's, able to take up that position. But men, they're like, even if they have like 25% of the skill set, they're like, yeah, I can do it. Like they have that, I don't know, they just put themselves forward. And I feel as women, that's important. We really need to speak up. And even though we're not perfect in that skill set, I feel like, we can all learn it. And I definitely feel that is important. And thank you for sharing, your insights on that, Rekha. Okay, Geetika, thank you so much for, working it out and having Melissa join us on the call. Melissa, we would love to hear from you. What were the challenges you faced in the workplace and how were you able to overcome them?
So my biggest challenge was just my age. So I started out in a group as one of the designers and came in and just kind of showed that I knew what I was doing. And the company went through a reorg. And my manager and most of the senior people got pulled to go start a new group. So I was left kind of holding the bag. And they said, hey, you're in charge of the lab now. Go. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting. And I remember the very first meeting that I had with the team. I did one-on-ones. And the first guy that I sat down with basically told me, I have an issue with the fact that I've been working with the company longer than you've been alive. What are you going to do for me? So I took that challenge and really worked hard to turn it around and tell him, well, I have the big challenge of making sure you're successful. And I was able to do that over the course of several years. And fast forward 10 years later, he came to tell me, you're the best manager I ever had, because he was able to grow and learn and work on new hardware. So it was getting my peers to recognize that I could be as accomplished and knowledgeable as they were, even though I was half their age.
Yes, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Melissa, I'd love to hear from you. How do you achieve and make time for personal growth? And how do you keep learning new skills? And just how do you make time for yourself?
I just do it. So like this seminar today, I was in an all-day teaching seminar yesterday. I just have to put it on my calendar and schedule it the same way I do things at work. Now, granted, my whole family in California is asleep right now, So a lot of my efforts happen before they wake up or after they go to bed. So I just have to make the time for me. I'm a strong supporter of work-life synergy and not just work-life balance, because they have to work together very well.
Yes, I do agree. It is important to find that balance which works for you and make it work and make some time for yourself. All right, Miss Gwendy, the same question for you as well. How do you make time for yourself, and how do you make time to have personal growth?
I'll be honest that I am bad at the making time for myself part, and that it is something I am actively working on. But in terms of, let's see, trying to gain new skills, this is an industry where you get to learn. That is actually part of what I love about it. You are constantly learning, things are constantly changing, and I am a person who gets very bored. So this is the perfect industry for me. But part of how I keep up is I join meetups and groups. I ask lots of questions. I get on mailing lists and go to conferences like you're doing right now. So keep doing this if you get the opportunity. But what I would really suggest for most people is that you try to get your workplace to do this for you. I learned code on the job. I currently have a company that gives me 5 hours a week paid to continue my work in the industry. So we're a consulting company. I have to bill 30 hours a week to the client, but 5 hours are for me. And so that can be anything. That or learning something new, or doing a side project, or figuring something out. But it gives me that flexibility. A good workplace will do that, and you might have to advocate it for yourself. But I think that is what the standard you should be looking for, because this is an industry where you can't run and you have a family and have a life if you're not doing it at work. Another way to do it is to advocate for opportunities. So ask for that thing that you want to do. If you see something you don't know how to do it, ask to be put on that project. Like, let your work be the way that you grow. And if you're not getting that opportunity, that is probably a workplace where you're not going to be able to grow as much. It just doesn't happen. There's 40 hours in your work week, but there's just not 40 additional hours for you to learn. So.
I love that. Miss Brandy, I'd love to hear from you. How do you make time for personal growth and make time for yourself?
Yeah, so I'm awful in the opposite way. I have a really hard time saying no to things. So I just book my calendar super full. But what that leads to is, to Melissa's point, like having to schedule out blocks of time for myself. And so I think it's so important. It's so easy to get caught up in the idea of, are you doing enough as a woman? Are you achieving all the things? Are you doing all the things? Are you going all the places? Are you taking all the pictures? Are you posting all the social posts? So I think just, the constant struggle to balance that and realize that, what are your priorities? Unless social media is your priority, it's probably okay to unplug for a couple of hours. So I would echo Melissa in saying, schedule time for yourself on your calendar. It is just as important as all the other items on your calendar, if not more important.
Thank you. Ms. Rachel, how do you make time for yourself and achieve personal growth?
Honey, isn't that the golden question? With 7 kids in the home, animals, and making sure everybody's doing everything, I have to put myself at the top of my list every day. And what that looks like is I wake up before everybody else does, and I get some music going on, and I just set some time aside for me, and I set my priorities for the day. I shared this on another call that I was on earlier in the week, that I have adult attention deficit disorder, and I can get easily distracted with all of the things. And then I'll end up getting myself distracted by putting on more things onto my plate. But what I've started to put into practice is the power of 3. What are the 3 things that I want to get done today, that I want to get done this week, and maybe that I want to get done this month? And those are the things that I focus myself on. And if anything else, if I get those done and something else comes up, it's still a win for me because I've accomplished those 3 things. I shut my computer, my phone off on a daily because I can get sucked into it, and so much so to the point where I'm just staring at the screen. I don't know what the hell I'm staring at. Like, what? So I also do that. I have books. I close my computer screen, I close my phone, I open up a good book, whether that's a tech book or, you know, something just nonsensical. I love humor. I love to laugh. I love going outside and taking walks. So these are things that I do for me. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And if you're not filled, if you don't have the things that it takes to fuel yourself, how are you going to be your best at work? How are you going to be your best at home? You cannot do that unless you make yourself a priority. So that would be my advice. That's how I maintain. It might change tomorrow, child, because this is a never-ending, evolving story.
Thank you. Yes, those were some really important tips and helpful advice. Ms. Stephanie, how do you keep learning or gaining skills or just making time for yourself?
First of all, love everyone's answers. Like, such good answers here, especially for this question. So I definitely agree with Wendy. Try to figure out how you can learn at work. At my organization, we do have learning and development hours that are part of our review cycle. And like the number of hours kind of depend on your level in the organization. The higher level you are, the more hours you have to complete. So like if there are ways that you can correlate it to work, that's great. Also to Melissa's point about work-life synergy, yes. So thinking about like moving beyond balance, an example of what that could look like in real life. For me, a couple of years ago, I decided that like I really needed to figure out how to prioritize my volunteer commitments and how to like make them really correlate better with like my work goals and my like career goals, because I was, like Brandy was saying yes to everything and then being so tired and so burnt out. So I decided, okay, it has to be about women, it has to be about equity, and it has to involve either tech or entrepreneurship. And like those are the parameters. So I say no to 100% of opportunities that do not align with that. And it's like even just having that checklist to be able to say like, this is my framework, I already made the decision, I don't have to think about it, it doesn't fit, no thank you, is awesome. And then thinking too about like how to balance everything. For me, I know that if I don't get enough sleep, nothing else will work in my life and everyone will think I'm a monster, because I do turn into a monster. And so it's like, if I use that like sleep as the thing and just make sure no matter what, I focus on getting 8 hours of sleep every night and like notice if I'm getting off track and like hone that back in, other things do fall into place a little bit easier. But also you have to take the time to be intentional about scheduling it like that. I just happen to have my planner right next to me. And it's like, really, it's like I have my digital calendars, absolutely. But every Monday morning I sit down with my paper planner and I write everything out of my phone and my, you know, like my laptop calendar on this piece of paper, because it helps me just to feel organized in a way that just like adds one extra layer. And it is so satisfying to physically cross things off, but also to look and say like, okay, I see this big time that says blocked and this is what I'm working on. So just a few tips, just do all of those things and you'll be fine. But really, like to Rachel's point, it is about like figuring out what works for you now, knowing that that's going to change along with like other circumstances. So like being willing to kind of like revisit those decisions every now and then and kind of recalibrate according to like what is working and what you need right now.
Thank you for sharing that. All right. Last but not least, Ms. Rekha, how do you make time for yourself and how do you make time to have personal growth, learn new things?
I think one thing I learned over a period of time is I need to love myself. I think one thing that we do, like as we get busy with our work, as Stephanie, Rachel, Randy, Melissa, Gwen, everybody said, so sucked up at our work, the priorities that no, we have to continue to prove ourselves. And I think that's what is happening today, right? But with that said, I think it's very important that you take care of yourself. I think that mental well-being is very important. I have personally known people who get into like depression and things because they are not able to kind of juggle and draw the line right where you need to. So I think loving yourself, taking care of yourself is very important. And how you do it, at least how I do it, I ask for support. So I go to my husband and say that, no, hey, I want to do these things. Will you be ready to support me? I think that's pretty important, right? Because if you don't ask for support, I think sometimes you just can't do it. I'll be honest with you, right? So ask for support. It's okay. I mean, I think asking your loved ones is the biggest gift that someone would have given you. More, I think you can ask for that. The second thing I would say, you need to do, at least I do, is I'm always open to kind of sometimes reprioritize things. Like there are times when I get too many things on my plate and I say, okay, what is really important for me versus what is not? Because it's not just work. I'm also juggling with kids' priorities. I'm juggling with personal things, parents, and obviously our personal growth, right? Because I want to go probably do some volunteer work. I want to probably go help more women outside. So I think you will have to kind of prioritize at some point, like what is the top thing for you? What are the top 3 things you want to go? And it's okay, you can constantly reassess, right? So learn how to kind of prioritize. I think I've learned it in a very hard way because I failed. There was a time when I was trying to do 10 things and I was not even good at one. So I learned that, no, hey, how do you kind of prioritize yourself? And then as what Stephanie was saying, I also do planning at my kind of calendar. I block my Fridays where I say no meetings. That way, like I do Friday afternoons where I can focus on something that I want to learn or a skill that I want to do, right? I think we need to kind of cultivate those practice. Nobody would be coming to us and telling us, do this, don't do this. So I think we are responsible for our actions. It is in our control. So the things that are in your control, I would say, take charge of it, right? And define it and be an example, someone who's going to be. I never had mentors. I never had mentor sponsors. I always struggled for it. Now I have, and I love to be a sponsor or mentor for someone who's facing the same struggle that I did and I never had the support, right? So I think taking care of yourself, asking for help, asking for the support, and carving out, prioritizing what is important, not doing things, taking charge of yourself, your schedule. I think these are some of the things I have learned and I keep finding it very helpful. And I won't say I've mastered it, I'll never master it. I think it's an everyday learning for me. I learn it from my husband. I learn it from my mom. My mom has been my bigger inspiration. I think I learned so much from her. I think she always keeps telling me that do more, because she wanted to always study. She could never study. She's like just 10th grader. And now she realizes that, oh, wish I had studied. And she had to stop studying because she got married. And now she regrets that wish she had studied, right? She could have done much more. She could have been more educated. Like she cannot be independent. I think we all need to learn how to be independent, right? And it doesn't have to be in the form of money, right? Even when you make decisions, right? How calm, composed you are, how good you are at making, right? And you will learn that skill. It's all about you practicing, right? Carve out time for yourself, girls. I mean, it's very important. Love yourself. I think nobody would love as much as you can do to yourself.
Thank you, Rekha, for sharing that. That was really insightful. And again, all of your answers were amazing. I'm just going to summarize a bit of everything that all the panelists shared. So starting with, making time for yourself, actually scheduling and blocking time for yourself, that will, make sure that you are accountable for actually learning and doing the things that you want to do. And then remembering the whys. So what is important to you? Why are you doing it? And then that will help you stay organized, especially if there's so many opportunities coming in. You want to make sure that they are aligned with your goals and, you know, the things that you are passionate about. So it can be women, equity, and tech, or, you know, it's different for everyone. And depending on what your goals are, just prioritizing that. And then someone, I think it was Brandy, who said, you know, just making some me time for yourself. And then Rachel, did you say the power of 3? Sorry, correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, the power of 3. That was really helpful, you know, making sure that you have 3 things that you want to achieve. And no matter if you know, did not get some things accomplished, at least you have those 3 things, and those can be your top 3 things that you want to accomplish in the week. So yeah, definitely these were really helpful and amazing points on how to make time for yourself and how to achieve personal growth. So we are right on time. We are at the end of the session. So before we end, again, I'd like to thank you all for coming in today and speaking to our hackathon members and just sharing your insights, your journey. It's been really amazing learning from you all. Before we wrap up, I'd like to open the questions to the audience. Are there any questions you would like to ask and get answered?
There was one in the chat.
Yes, I think
Okay,
I saw one question. So I'll just quickly reiterate the question that was given in the chat, and it was Ruth Bader talked about how not being allowed a seat at the table led her to the Supreme Court. What are your thoughts, advice on springing back from doors being shut because of your gender, race, speaking out? So I'll kind of leave this question out there. We can start with Melissa, and then if anyone else wants to answer it, that would be awesome.
So I think I never waited to be invited to the table. If you hear my voice, I'm from Maryland, so I kind of have a Southern twang. I'm not from the South, but people assume that they assume that I'm a white Southern lady when they talk to me on the phone. So I'm so sweet and sugary, and I will go in, and I learned very early to ask people to help me because they were so knowledgeable. So in all of the top level managers, I would go in and say, hey, I heard you in a meeting and you said this amazing thing, and I would love to learn from you. It seems like you have a lot to offer. Stroking egos is the best way to kind of insert yourself into meetings. I mean, I would meet with presidents of companies. They would invite me to lunch. And it was more that in a way they wanted to feel as though they were helping someone who was like their daughter, right? Because I was so young. And now that I am on the other side of that and as a mentor, I find that the opportunities are there. And it's just a matter of, someone said it earlier, trying to get on a project. Gwendolyn, actually, I think you said it. You were like, try to get on a project that is interesting to you. So getting a seat at the table when there's no chair that's even there just means you pack your own chair and you have all your stuff with you and all your tools, and you just go in and say, hey, I'm willing to help. And it might be the grunt work. It might be, writing up the reports or doing whatever.
Yes, that was amazing.
But you will
yeah,
get there.
I agree.
And you will
Don't
get
wait
noticed.
for your invitation. Opportunities will come to you, and you just need to put yourself out there and then take the opportunity. Okay. So would anyone like to add on to this question? Please feel free.
I'll say something with regard to that question, because I've experienced having doors closed in my face and opportunities that were held back from me. But I use every single closed door as fuel to press forward if it's something that I know that is in line with my purpose. The other fold to my answer is, you have to be thankful for the closed doors and the rejection, because sometimes a closed door means an open door somewhere else. So if you get a rejection letter, if you're facing that you applied for a position and you did not get it and somebody else got it, that does not mean that your opportunity is gone. That means that there's something greater for you somewhere else. There is another door. So you can use rejection as fuel to keep pressing if you know that's in alignment with your purpose, or you can use rejection and be grateful and thankful for it and be anticipating that other door that opens for you. Because I am a living, breathing, walking, talking testimony that when one door closes, another one opens. The opportunity that presented itself for us to be here today is an open door. So it can happen. It has happened so many times before. And just like Ruth Bader has said, you know, in a lot of her interviews, if that door hadn't closed, she probably wouldn't be where she was. So you have to be thankful for those moments and appreciative.
I have one more very short thing to add. Just like get clear on who your champions are and like who are the people who are sponsoring you, who are supporting you regardless. And just like know who those folks are, because like there are times when a door shuts in your face that like, yes, it's building resilience. Yes, it's opening other opportunities, but yes, it also can be super painful in the moment. So like knowing like who you can lean on in those moments, who are, you know, the people that are going to tell you like, you got this, like have some of those folks in your back pocket and also be that person for others. And it will just pay dividends in helping build your resilience in the future.
And one more thing I will say is that you should always be asking, why not you? Like sometimes it shouldn't be you, but like often, like I have been in these spaces, I've talked to CEOs, like they are not really that special. Why shouldn't it be you? Advocate for yourself. Like you are special too. And I think that you would be surprised when you start to meet important people to find that they are just people and you can do it too. So.
Thank you. Yes, these were all really amazing answers to this question. All right, with this, we can wrap up the panel. I loved the panel. I loved all the answers that you guys had, and it was amazing to just learn about your journey and get to know you all a little bit more. Thank you for joining us this Sunday morning. And I hope that the panel was just as informational and insightful to the viewers as well. But yeah, thank you again. Have a great rest of your Sunday. And yeah, bye.